This video has a breakdown for more severe storms on the way with an outbreak as we go through the rest of the upcoming week. I'll also cover threats that will go beyond severe weather, including major flooding that could be possible. Stick around for all those details in the next 10 minutes. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and jump into an overview of what's going to be happening with the mid-level jet stream, 15 to 20,000 feet on up into the atmosphere as we go into the week ahead, because what happens as we go through the rest of the week in the atmosphere is going to dictate what goes on at the surface. And as we go out of our Monday, March 31st when I'm recording this, and into our Tuesday, April 1st, and the early part of our Wednesday, April 2nd. This isn't a April Fool's joke by any stretch of the imagination, but we're going to have another setup for severe weather beginning by the time we go to the end of our Tuesday, with another trough or strong piece of jet stream energy moving out of the southwest United States and then curving on up here into parts of the plains, or especially from Texas up to Nebraska and points in between, and eventually shifting over to the Mississippi Valley as we go out of Tuesday into Wednesday. A dangerous threat for wind, hail, and tornadoes is likely to develop on the leading edge of this trough, which will also be transporting a lot of moisture from the southwest to the northeast, as indicated by those arrows that I just drew. One thing that is going to be going on with this jet stream setup as well as we go throughout the rest of this week is a big pull of warmer than average temperatures up into the east. That's going to help in fueling your severe weather and flooding threats that I'll talk about. Meanwhile, back in the west, I do want to note that temperatures will be around to cooler than average through a lot of those zones, with a decent bit of snowfall as we see that consistent troughing and digging of the jet stream moving through and just to the southeast side of the Rockies. Look at what's going to happen out of this setup by the time we go through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even towards the early part of the upcoming weekend. More jet stream energy moving over the same areas. That's going to lead to severe weather over into parts of the Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, while also pivoting a very dangerous flood threat into a lot of those zones. I'll be breaking the severe weather and the flooding down in more detail, and I want to start that by going into a future radar overview with our GFS Ensemble's blended guidance now. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get the overview going as we push things out of our March 31st when I'm recording this and into our Tuesday, April 1st of 2025. If you're seeing a wet weather at all as we go into the afternoon and evening of Tuesday, you're probably back in the northwestern quadrant of the country, where a lot of the precipitation that we will be seeing associated with our low moving out into the front range, it will be in the form of snow. Anywhere from the Dakotas and Minnesota, where we'll see heavy snow ramping up later in the day Tuesday, all the way back through the Rockies and Mountain West, and even to the northern parts of California. In those mountains, lots of snow moving through, and of course the higher elevations of the west will deal with quite a bit of accumulation as we see consistent snow as a result of that troughing and the associated moisture from low pressure systems that we'll be working on through as we go through the rest of this week. The culprit low for our major severe weather event for especially the next few days, though, is going to be forming right there. You can see it out of Nebraska and Kansas and eventually shifting east into the night, Tuesday night heading into the early part of Wednesday morning, and you can really see the classic low pressure type setup by the time we get towards 3, 4, 5 in the morning Wednesday. Low pressure pivoting over into parts of Nebraska with a warm front lifting north, around and on the north side of that warm front. All good to go for snowfall as we've still got that cold pocket of air in places like the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the upper peninsula of Michigan, at least for the early part of the day Wednesday. But behind that warm front is your warm sector, and in the warm sector and ahead of your cold front and dry line, that's where you tend to get your best chance for severe storms. So anywhere from the Central Plains pushing into parts of the Midwest and into Missouri, Illinois, surrounding spots, that's where we're going to have that best chance for these strong storms that could include all severe hazards as we see them push through again into Tuesday night into the early to mid part of Wednesday. Eventually, our severe weather threat's going to ramp back up as we go deeper through the day Wednesday, with low pressure sending a lot of the snowfall on up into parts of Canada by this point in time, although there will still be snow lingering all the way back to the Rockies. We'll likely have its associated cold front continuing to push east, a now even broader warm sector, and along and ahead of that cold front, anywhere from the Great Lakes back down to Texas. We're looking at a severe weather threat that will include the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys at some point from Wednesday into Wednesday night as well as into Thursday. And one threat that's going to be in addition to the severe weather, of course, is going to be the possibility of flooding, because as you can see, with another round of storms possible over the same zones with a stalling front into Thursday, more storms possible as new low pressure tries to form into the weekend. A lot of the same areas will be seeing more and more rain, and as that really begins to center itself anywhere from parts of Texas and Oklahoma through Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, and even into Indiana and Ohio, we will likely see a very significant threat for flooding develop. And before I even talk about some of the day-by-day severe risk zones and ingredients, I do want to actually cover how much rain is expected based on blended guidance in these zones as we go through the next 5 to 7 days. The blended guidance on screen does a great job of indicating 4-day increments of forecasted rainfall, and in this case, as we go from around the midweek time frame through the middle of the upcoming weekend, you can see how much rain is really anticipated from Texas all the way up to Ohio Ohio, Pennsylvania, and points in between. It's really going to be through the mid and some parts of the lower Mississippi Valley and into the Ohio Valley where we have the zone of greatest concern, where lots of spots in these reddish shades are anticipating at least a couple, if not a few inches of rainfall to come on down. That's going to be the broad forecast, but of course there are going to be those locally higher totals that could induce at least scattered to widespread flooding already in these zones. And then you've got that even heavier spot, likely exiting Arkansas, moving into Tennessee, parts of Kentucky, and surrounding spots. That's where we're going to have the best chance for upwards of 6 inches of rain, some spots getting closer to a foot. So we could end up with a very catastrophic, if not life-threatening flooding for a lot of folks in some of these zones as a result of training storms with those locally higher rainfall totals. That's going to be as we go through the rest of this week and towards the upcoming weekend, so stay alert. Now on your screen, we're going to start the discussion about some of the storm energy and the zones that are going to have the best chance for severe thunderstorms as we go through the next several days. Before I do discuss that, though, I do want to briefly let you know that I'm going to have a live stream, or I have a very high likelihood of having one of those as we go into our Tuesday, April 1st in the evening, sometime around 8 Eastern or 7 Central Time at roughly. Make sure that you're staying tuned for that, subscribing to this channel, having notifications on, because I'll not only do a forecast on that live stream, but I'll answer any questions you may have about this dangerous weather event. Well, let's go ahead and use this European model to give you a look at how much storm energy we're going to have day by day working up towards those strong jet stream pieces of energy working their way through the upper atmosphere. And you can see we're going to have quite a bit of storm energy anywhere from Texas and Oklahoma all the way up through parts of Kansas, Nebraska, even into parts of Iowa, western Missouri, parts of Arkansas, as well as Louisiana as we go deeper through the day Tuesday. Of course, the model that I showed earlier, the GFS Ensemble Future Radar, indicated that we will have storms over a lot of these zones. So wherever we have storms, we're going to have quite a bit of storm energy for them to tap into as we go through Tuesday and Tuesday night. So we'll have to watch out for many of these severe weather hazards as we also see a strong lower level jet stream kicking up and increasing wind shear. That's an ingredient for severe weather. That will be going there into our Tuesday and Tuesday night, and then by Wednesday and Wednesday night, more storm fuel, more wind shear, and it is going to be a very intense environment with a conditional major tornado outbreak threat closer to the Mississippi Valley as we see a lot of energy from places like Iowa, Missouri, and eastern Oklahoma all the way into parts of the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. Any storms that we see in that zone will be volatile, and we could continue to watch some volatile storms that also produce that flooding more and more as we go deeper through the rest of the upcoming week as a result of energy continuing to train along that stationary boundary from the Ohio Valley back down to the southern plains. I intend to talk more about the day-by-day severe weather risks and break these graphics down more as we get into that live stream that's likely on Tuesday, so again, don't miss out on that. But here's a look at my custom ONW severe scale, a 0 to 7 severe weather forecast scale for the Tuesday and Tuesday night event of severe weather to kick this thing off. First of all, I want to go ahead and let you know that a lot of these storms are likely to be nocturnal as we go through Tuesday evening as well as overnight into Wednesday morning, with the threat for scattered damaging winds, scattered large hail, some of which could be upwards of 2 inches in diameter, as well as the threat for tornadoes. We could even see a strong tornado or two in this type of environment. While the environment is volatile all the way back to Texas, it's very unlikely that we see a bunch of storms fire. That's why it's more conditional with a level 2 of 7 there. Still be on the lookout back down there into central Texas, though. Better chance for those storms to really fire on up and even have that strong tornado risk is going to be as you exit Oklahoma, get up into Kansas and surrounding spots. So be on the lookout and have a way to receive alerts there as we have a likely dangerous severe weather threat during the night, Tuesday night. By the time we go into Wednesday, severe weather is anticipated to push east, and I've already got zones highlighted where I'd put a level 3 or level 4 of 7 for Wednesday's outlook on my ONW severe scale as of now, from Texas up to the lower Great Lakes and points in between in the Mississippi and Ohio valleys. That's where you need to be on high alert for damaging winds and hail, just like we saw in the outbreak just a couple days ago back on Sunday. And then, of course, by the time this event comes around, we could even see more of a conditional risk for a major tornado outbreak realized. So all hazards could be possible, and that means you need to be prepared once again after many rounds have already come through as we've gone through March with severe weather in these zones. Can't catch a break, and we're going to see flooding with it this time, so you need to be prepared yet again in the Mississippi Valley and surrounding spots. Now that I've talked about the severe weather out of this storm, I have just a couple things left to talk about, one of those being the forecasted snow totals, as there will be a cold side to all of this as we go through the next several days. Let's start with the forecasted snowfall totals by the time we just go here through the end of the upcoming week, and you can see that by the time we get through Friday afternoon, at several spots here through the Mountain West all the way back to the Pacific Northwest, anticipating at least a few inches of snow, especially as you go on up in elevation. The big winners for snowfall are going to be the higher elevations of south central Montana, west central parts of Colorado, central Utah, and then the Sierra range of California, where many zones could get upwards of 9 to 12 inches into those highest peaks. What about on over here on the north side of that warm front, where we're going to get snow from the Dakotas over to Michigan? Pretty decent swath of snow. All these blue zones indicating at least a few inches of snow being anticipated. That's going to include the Dakotas, all the way down to places like Minneapolis, Minnesota, through central Wisconsin. And then we've got this even higher zone where we're probably going to get more like 6 to 12 inches of snow, maybe even a few spots exceeding a foot. And that's going to be as you exit the Dakotas and push through central and northern Minnesota before this event is all said and done. From there, more snow adding up in the west and maybe even getting on up into the west central plains by the time we get into the upcoming weekend. Less snow will be adding up in the north central plains by that point in time, though, as we will be done with that main event. With that being said, that's all I have for today's video, except to tell you to subscribe so you don't miss that likely live stream into our Tuesday. But also, here's a look at those high temperatures expected before that live stream comes around on Tuesday. 60s, 70s, and 80s are very common over the southeastern quadrant of the U.S., while the northern and northwestern tier looks at a lot of 30s and 40s. A big contrast, especially along and to the south and north of this line right here. Everybody have a great Monday heading into our Tuesday, and I'll see you in the live stream if you tune into that.